Hello and welcome to CTN. I'm Sajogol, your host, and the topic for conversation today is digital transformation, employee experience, or IT support, GoodLife's fitness journey of innovation, flexibility, and cutting-edge technology. So what are we talking about here? GoodLife Fitness faced a big challenge. They had outdated support systems that couldn't keep up with what the customers needed. So they knew they had to make a change. So they teamed up with Freshworks and AWS to rethink how they do things. Now, but how do they handle this transformation? And what steps did they take to improve their service and their overall experience? To discuss that, I have with me Robert Vermeersch, Manager of Help Desk Support at GoodLife Fitness. Hey, Robert, how are you?
Good. Thanks for asking, and thanks so much for having me on.
Beautiful. And I also have David Flesh, who's the Vice President of Product Marketing at Freshworks. Hey, David, how's life, sir?
Hi, Sanjog. It's great. I'm happy to be here with you and Robert.
Beautiful. So first question I'm going to ask you, Robert. So let's start with the old system you had in place. So what were some of the biggest headaches you were dealing with? And how did those issues actually affect your IT service management on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, one of the first ones I can think of is training new hires. The time invested in training new hires took months and months of ticket shadowing and call shadowing. We really lacked a proper knowledge base and a searchable system that could have cut down on that lead time for training. In addition to that, our lack of onboarding and offboarding tracking was pretty painful. So we had no central tracking system. So many tickets stemmed from what wasn't originally requested in the onboarding, and then to the offboarding, receiving hardware back was inconsistent. Removing system access relied on individuals sort of knowing when others were leaving by word of mouth, which isn't a way to run it. And then triaging, we did a lot of manual triaging, which cut down on the time we could have spent addressing the technical issues at hand. Ultimately, thinking back about 10 years, we were a paper-based company transferring into a digital world. So that old system might have worked for us back then, but it would ultimately just hold us back.
So David, since you've been around the block, and I'm sure you've had quite a few customers who you have seen having issues. So what are some of the common challenges that you've seen companies are facing, like GoodLife Fitness has faced with the outdated support systems, and what initial steps can they take to begin addressing these issues?
Yeah, great questions. And, what Robert's describing is, similar to what we hear from a lot of customers, kind of depending on where they are in their journey. But if we roll it back a little bit and we just think about what are the big challenges that we hear from IT leaders, the first is this demand for digital innovation. As Robert said, all companies are becoming digitally driven. They're moving to digital services. And that, combined with the cost and overhead of maintaining, their current systems, legacy systems, can make it quite challenging to meet the new demands of the business. And of course, in the IT environment, there's very little budget growth to support these new demands. So budget needs to be optimized and put into the best places possible. And then in combination with these kind of macro level challenges, there's the challenges of productivity and staff turnover. There's, the issues of acquiring, training, and retaining talent, which every organization is dealing with, providing great experiences for employees, and then doing all of that again, and that with the ability to manage the services that they're providing. And so what we see is companies like GoodLife adopting, modern solutions that give them the ability to put service management in place, typically looking at a unified solution for managing their IT estate, so ITSM, ITOM, ITAM, and then being able to expand as their service management mission grows. And so we see organizations moving to HR, facilities, and finance to provide, a consistent service experience for their employees. And then all of that is designed to drive efficiencies, better employee engagement, and, AI is starting to become a big contributing factor to that.
So, Robert, does what David say resonate with you?
Yeah, it sure does. The whole ITSM toolkit exists in Freshservice. We think of it as a one-stop shop, which is just really handy feature for our agents and our admins. It's got everything we need to function as a business, but it's also customizable. We're very unique, as I'm sure a lot of companies are. So we need things to be changed and altered as we see fit, and it has all that capability for us. So it's just nice to have all in one place, the one-stop shop.
Now, Robert, as a follow-on question, so what actually made you realize that it's time for you to up your support system, do the upgrade? And when it came down to looking at different providers, including Freshworks, what were some of the key factors that convinced you that it was the right move to move with Freshworks and Freshservice?
Yeah, we certainly outgrew our existing provider. We used to have a queue where the tickets were red if the requester had responded, and they were green if we had responded. And we thought that was pretty neat at the time, which is kind of funny looking back. The reality of it was the business was just moving at the speed of light, and we needed a solution that could keep up with its growth. So it was actually my previous manager who sought out to find a proper ITIL-based system. And Freshworks being powered by AWS had the features that we deemed required for our help desk support team. Some of those features, to name a few that caught his eye, were Assets CMDB, which is configuration management database, changes, problems, reporting, service health, service requests. Those are all things we really didn't have with our existing provider, and it certainly caught our eye. So ultimately, Freshservice grew with us. We started with a trial back in 2014, early that year, with 30 agents, and yeah, the rest is history.
And so, Robert, not wearing your Freshworks hat, what do you think are some of the key areas in which organizations who are looking for upgrading their support system or getting the best one for their needs should be looking at? What are some of the key factors?
Yeah, ultimately for us, it's nice to have things under one umbrella, not to have to bounce around between systems to, have different associates work in different systems, and it just creates a lot of silos there, where if we're all in one ecosystem like Freshworks has or Freshservice, it just allows that. It breaks down that barrier, and it just makes it easy to, add a note to someone on a problem and they're already in the system and they just go hop in and look at it. Just having that ability is paramount for us. So.
David, what would you like to add to that so that people can take objective decisions based on what's best for them?
Yes, Sanjog. So first, it's been great to partner with Robert and GoodLife Fitness and to see the journey that they're on, which is, not dissimilar to the journey a lot of organizations take, where they realize their old approach to IT management just doesn't meet the growing needs of the business. And so, what GoodLife has done here is an excellent example of identifying the needs at the time and then identifying their long-term needs and then looking for, a partner, a vendor that can, work with them and continue to meet those needs.
Now, David, with that said, what do you think companies look at in a technology partner when seeking to address any of their IT services management challenges?
Yeah, it really depends on the organization, but when we look at our customers and the conversations I have with our customers, there's some very consistent themes, right? One is, looking for a replacement for their existing service management system that for whatever reason doesn't meet their current needs. It might be that they've outgrown it. It might be that it's become too complex and difficult to maintain. Many of them are looking for a single vendor that will give them that ability to consolidate and bring together the different functions in IT operations like service management, operations management, and asset management. And, really start breaking down the silos amongst those teams and leveraging that integrated approach to provide better service levels, to be able to respond to things much more quickly, and just have better visibility into the IT environment. Easy to use, which doesn't mean simple but easy to use, and that people will actually adopt it, right? It's very important that if you're going to put a system in place, your users, whether they're your agents, your leaders, your admins, and certainly your employees that rely on that system, are going to be able to go use the system, because that's how you get value, right? If you're putting something in place and people don't like it, it's too complicated, it's too technical for them, they just don't adopt it quickly, and then you've spent a bunch of money on something that you're just not getting the benefits from. And then the need for security, privacy, and all of the things that come with this, which are something that we really rely on our partner AWS to provide us as the platform that Freshworks and Freshservice run on. An example is A&E Networks, right? They used a legacy system. They used it for 7 years, and ultimately they decided to pivot to Freshworks and Freshservice because they realized they were overpaying and they just weren't getting the value out of their investment. They weren't getting the capabilities. They weren't being adopted quickly enough. And so they made the change to Freshworks. And, it's great to hear from their SVP of strategy. He talks about having the same dollars today that he did before with that previous vendor, but now he's able to apply that budget much more effectively.
Robert, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I just want to touch on the point about adoption and quickly getting value. With any new feature comes a great release of training and real world examples, just how to use it and how to implement it. It's nice to see, okay, here's this new feature, but here's how you could use it. And you can start to brainstorm and get ideas of how us as a company at GoodLife can incorporate that new feature. I liken their training of to like an all-you-can-eat buffet, right? Right after this meeting, we're actually going to a training on how to securely roll out Copilot. So it's nice they kind of give you those guidelines and digestible training along the way where you're not overwhelmed thinking, how on earth am I going to implement this? You kind of work your way into it and sort of follow the yellow brick road.
So Robert, another question for you. What, in your view, or how would you best describe what employee experience means today? And then what does having the right tool going to do to improve the productivity and also make sure that the team spirit stays pretty high?
Yeah, today I'd summarize GoodLife as being one big team. It's a really big team, but we are always thought of as one big team. It's easy to feel disconnected, and I think in today's remote world, and we're a company that's coast to coast here in Canada, and we strive to make sure that it is felt that we are, sort of all for one and one for all. Having almost all of our home office agent groups in Freshservice allows us to be nimble there. If we get a ticket and it's logged to the wrong department, we don't have to reject it and, make the requester feel like they, have to start over. We can simply reassign it. We work alongside a lot of the agents for those teams. So having everybody in that same system just makes it so easy to move something that was incorrectly logged. So I think that empowers our associates or employees, where we're striving to give them the comfort to log their own issues and requests with confidence, knowing it's going to the right spot, it's going to get handled. That's where the support portal's been instrumental. They can come there, they can look for articles or solutions, or they can just log their issue and have confidence that our large team of, or our large agent group of different teams are going to handle it and make sure it gets to the right spot. Another big thing recently has just been the tools that we've been able to incorporate. So whether that's assets, we can see what machine that particular person is using, the age of it, the specs of it, that's all available right there within like 1 or 2 clicks. And then we've also got a tie-in with our HRIS through Azure Skim, which is awesome. So we can tell when they started with the company, who their reporting manager is, what their job title is. These are all just questions we don't have to ask them anymore. So we can get to work on, processing their request. We don't have to find out if they're approved or, to see what role they're in and when they started. It's all right there for us. And it just saves a lot of clicks and a lot of back and forth, which should improve the experience on both ends.
So David, since you might have had quite a few discussions with organizations who may have utilized such tools, right? What is it that they say about, the impact it had on the productivity, and also how did it properly balance and or helped with employee morale?
Yeah, great question. So, there's a couple of things there to unpack. One is, thinking about productivity of the service organization, right? And giving them the right tools that they're going to be able to get in and use. That's super important, as Robert said, right? And what we're seeing is this changing expectation around service levels from employees. We're seeing increasing demand on service delivery teams to deliver services and to deliver higher quality services. And at the same time, most organizations don't have the ability and the unlimited budget to just add new agents to support that demand. So being able to use automation, being able to use a self-service, an environment where your users will actually go in and be able to find answers to the questions they have without having to contact the service desk in a lot of cases is really critical. That's where we're seeing AI being increasingly adopted. Robert talked about, our Freddy AI Copilot, which helps agents be more effective, gives them the information they need right when they need it as they're responding to, an incident or a ticket coming in from an employee, but also applying AI to the actual employees so that when they're asking for something, the AI can kind of be that first level of conversation with the employee and look at helping to solve kind of the common things that are coming up so that agents can focus on, the more challenging problems and, the more technical problems, which is typically why they've joined IT organizations to begin with.
And since you may have seen so many different organizations trying different ways to make sure that they tackle their IT operational challenges and improve service delivery, what are some of the ones which stand out?
Yeah, so one of the things we do every year is we run our Fresh Service Benchmark Report. And with that, we look at a large base of customers. It's over 9,000. And we are able to see what they've deployed in their environments. And are they actually getting benefits from deploying, new capabilities, new technologies? And how can we quantify those benefits? And so, some great examples of what we see our customers doing and getting value from is, first and foremost, automating business process, right? Putting workflows in place, having the ability to configure those workflows and adapt to new and changing requirements. Our customers are using Freshservice for that. They use it every day. And on average, they're seeing a 27% reduction in their average resolution times and first contact resolution rates of 77% and above, which is, much better than what you typically see in normal and other environments. We're seeing a big move to chat support, right? We talked about engaging with employees, and a big part of that is engaging with employees where they work, right? And increasingly, employees are working in a collaboration channel like a Microsoft Teams or a Slack. And, that's the environment they're operating in day to day. That's how they're communicating with the different business teams, with each other. And so asking them to pop out of that environment into, a different environment to ask for help often can result in some pushback. So what we're seeing is organizations that are employing these chat channels are seeing much more rapid assignment. So getting things routed, right, as Robert talked about, getting the right request to the right provider quickly. So organizations are seeing that happen much more quickly. They're also seeing a 45% faster resolution time than on traditional channels like, email. The third thing we're seeing is our customers adopting, AI, and more recently, obviously, generative AI to, deliver self-service. And there we're seeing some real benefits starting to kick in, including a 53% deflection rate, where those self-service agents are able to answer the questions of the employees, do it quickly, get them the right information, and do it in a way that those employees will actually engage with, which is obviously very important. So those are examples of the kind of benefits our customers are seeing and the kind of results that they're looking for as they're putting these solutions in place.
So Robert, it seems like it's almost been a decade since you've been with Freshworks, right? And you've seen some good progress over the last 7 to 8 months in 2024. So what opportunities do you see on the horizon with Freshworks in your like the very ongoing ITSM transformation?
Yeah, I think the ITOM is going to be really big for us with transparency. We want to encourage transparency where we're letting our associates or our staff know what's going on. If there's a major incident or an outage, everybody wants to be in the loop, and they should be, they deserve to be. So we want, to incorporate that, and we see the tools there with ITOM to be able to do it. Some of the things and the tools that we're going to use is the status page, major incidents, which has the on-call, the alerts, and all the services impacted. I think that'll give us the transparency where we can keep them informed while other teams are working on the issue at hand, so we get the sort of nice balance of both. Again, it's all in one system, so that's a nice feature for us. Two of the other things we're looking to incorporate is virtual agent for our associates. So we live in Microsoft Teams or across the whole organization. We think of the virtual agent as a possible support portal assistant. It's like a smart finder or info provider. If you want to check on your ticket status, if there's an outages, or where to go to log an issue or to look for an article, that virtual agent's going to be there to help you. And they're going to be quicker. The reality is we're not 24/7, so they're going to be there all the time to sort of search our portal and use those articles that we've taken the time to build for you. And then on the other side, we want to use Copilot for our agents to help uncover trends, spin up quick reports. There's ticket summary, which is very handy. You get a ticket that's forwarded to you and it's a long thread. You can save yourself 10 to 15 minutes right there by summarizing it. There's translators, so you can converse languages. Resolution notes is another big one that we're really getting after. That allows us to have better reporting following incidents and closure of tickets, where we can see, okay, what's the common resolution here? And to follow that incident report. So when you're talking about major incidents, once it's fixed, it's a bit of a relief, but what happened? How did it all go down? What can we do better next time? So when you combine the Copilot and the virtual agent, what we want to, what we're setting out to accomplish is sort of a self-service option. So we want to provide the self-service support when they want it, but help and support when they need it. So sort of the have your cake and eat it too. We don't want to abandon them and force them to a chat option, but we want to be there if that chat option doesn't have, a simple quick fix, then bring on the issue. We're happy to help. So
great. So David, beyond adopting technology, what in your view and based on your experience are the steps required to do the IT service operations transformation more effectively?
So, there's many things that organizations need to think about. One is that, we've heard Robert talking about is, identifying, I would say, as you're engaging with your vendor, with your partner, you want to partner with them. So looking at what are the challenges that you're having today, but what are you looking at as your longer term roadmap? And, GoodLife Fitness has done an amazing job of, solving a very kind of upfront challenge that they had with, running out of the scale that they needed and the capabilities they needed with their previous vendor. But then looking at long term, what are the things that they need to do, right? Bring in asset management, bring in operations management, bring in the self-service portal and these capabilities to provide services for their employees. And so that's a key thing is, I think, to work with your vendor and talk about what your roadmap is, right? What are you thinking about in the future? And, anything that you can do to put milestones and timelines and checkpoints around that is going to be beneficial. Looking at, time to value is going to be super important, right? How quickly can you get something in place? Because let's face it, if you're buying a tool and you're not getting value out of it, right? You're spending money on making configuration changes, updating it, trying to get it to meet your needs. That's not value, right? The value you get is being able to put it in place, being able to get your users to adopt it, and starting to run your business on it. So that's critical. And then upskilling your employees. And there's different ways that you're able to start engaging that, right? But certainly by having an environment where you're bringing together information from across the ecosystem, right? So if you're bringing in information from your operations team, if you're bringing in asset information, like Robert talked about, right, that informs your agents in a way that helps them be able to focus on what they came to work to do, which is provide services to the employees that they're working for, and to provide, reliable and effective IT services. So, those are some of the things that are really critical. And then, I would say one other thing to just think about is, or maybe two things, is one is kind of continuous improvement, right? Getting feedback from stakeholders. What do they see as maybe challenges they have today, and how can those be responded to? And then what do they see coming, right? And then the other one is, defining clear objectives, putting a very clear strategy in place, and engaging with leadership. So the more that leaders in the organization understand what it is that you're doing with a new initiative, what that budget's going to go to, what the problems are that you're hoping to solve, and then the timelines and commitments, the more buy-in you get and the more able you are to be able to drive those programs successfully.
Robert?
The systems help bridge the gap for us being able to work on the issue at hand, but we have the automation built in the back end where we don't have to worry about, David, when you mentioned about stakeholders and leaders, when you're dealing with the chaos of a major incident or an outage, it's quick to forget who you got to keep in the know or who you got to keep in the loop on what's going on. Having these automations where you can trigger off notification of stakeholders and leaders, it helps you kind of have that peace of mind of knowing, okay, I'm going to work on this issue and that team's already in the know. And I just, I can focus on resolving the issue and have the confidence to know that we've put in the automation, we've put in those parameters to make sure that the stakeholders for that service or the leaders for that service are kept in the know, and it just kind of gives you a little bit more peace of mind where you're rest assured there. So that's been huge for us.
So, Robert, looking at this transformation journey, how do you feel it has raised the bar for excellence within GoodLife Fitness?
Yeah, I think the cat's out of the bag on what we can do with the system. So we've tapped into so much potential, and the good word is spread, it's a good thing. We often joke the only thing that's slowing us down is not having enough time to dedicate to the system. We've certainly tightened up a lot, so we're not so loose anymore on onboarding, offboarding, assets. There's processes there. I really think the more you put into it, the more you get out. So those benefits start to come full circle, as you build your knowledge base, as you build your canned responses and so on, you start to get the payoff very quickly. So I think earlier on we had talked about the biggest headaches that we had 10 years ago. They've subsided. Onboarding, we now have a process. Training, we've got a ton of knowledge base articles, and triaging, we use automation for that. So we've just freed up so much time for our agents where they can just focus on, the issues at hand and, creating new articles and just improving our service overall. So I think it's created that consistency and buy-in from the whole company. That helps us gain the user confidence to continue to build this out. It gives us, the desire that, hey, this is working. Let's keep at it. I think with the right tools at our disposal, the sky's the limit, right? We've only we've come a long way, and it still feels like we're only scratching the surface. Like there's just a whole universe there where we've got to uncover, but what we've done so far has come a long way for us.
So David, once say a company has made all of these big improvements, what do you think they need to do to keep up this momentum and maintain a pretty high standard all along in both employee experience and operations?
Yeah, I mean, we're at a very interesting kind of period of time, right? Where we're seeing these rapidly changing employee expectations around the technology that they're working with. And when you look at surveys that have been done by organizations like Workforce Institute or CFO.com, they talk about, we have 3 generations, at least in the workforce today, right? We've got Gen Z, we've got millennials, and we've got the boomers, right? And each one of those has different expectations around how they use technology in their lives and certainly at work. And what's really kind of astonishing is that these surveys show that, Gen Z employees are very much used to a modern way of interacting with technology, right? They're doing it day in and day out. They're doing it with the companies that they're buying things from. They're doing it through things like, their social media channels, right? And what they're looking for is fast service. They're looking for information, answers, responses when they need it. And that's, 24/7 expectations. And, those expectations are now translating into the work environment. And so, some of the surveys are talking about the stakes, right? Where 70% of Gen Z employees talk about leaving their jobs for better technology. And that doesn't stop there, right? With your millennials, 52% of them talk about they would leave for tech reasons. And then even the boomers that have traditionally been, phone-oriented, email-oriented, over a third of them talk about leaving for better tools to help them get the things done at work that they go to work for. So that just shows this transformation of expectation of what technology does for us as employees. And so you have that front-end experience of how you deliver service to those employees in ways that they want to engage with. And then, of course, there's, the operational back end, right? The reliability of those services, the availability of those services, the performance, right? All of those things are critical. And so, increasingly what we see there is the need to bring together all of the different teams that are supporting the infrastructure and operations within organizations and helping them break down the silos and encouraging collaboration so that if a change is taking place, the team making the change understands the impact on the business and they're able to factor that in. As Robert talked about, right, with major incident management, right? That's one of the worst things that can happen in an organization, high stress, high pressure. And what you don't want is individual teams pointing the fingers at each other. What you want is them working together to rapidly identify and resolve the issues. And so, that's something that is critical to our customers. It's something that, we are certainly building into the Freshservice system. And that's the ability to provide those capabilities and help our customers really drive those increased service capabilities and levels.
Thank you so much, both of you, Robert and David, for sharing your experiences with us here today. It's very good and thrilling to see how GoodLife Fitness tackled these challenges and made real improvements. And I'm sure our audience will get real value out of this conversation, and they may be able to take a few nuggets and adopt in their own journeys. So thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks so much for having us. It's been great.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
And to our audience, I'd like to invite you to find more conversations like this on CIOTalkNetwork.com.